The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Hello, welcome to another edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu. We got a great show for you. A lot of mistakes if you're a New England Patriot, maybe not so much, but speaking of guys who are mistakes, I'm just kidding.
You were going with that one.
Andrew Brethauer, how's it going, buddy?
Mom is not going to be happy. She is going to be angry. Facebook post is coming.
Well, after all the quibs you say about me, I thought it was time just to kind of razz you a little bit.
There's not enough show to talk about the things I say about you, probably. So, moving on.
We're going to leave it at that. This guy, well, we're going to talk, especially pleased to have you on, of course, Tyler Campbell. You've done some play-by-play work or color work with the Lloydminster Bobcats, of course, a freelance writer here in town. Love sports, and we're glad to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me, boys. It's going to be a good show today.
All right, we're going to talk about crybabies, in particular Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, considering what happened to him on Sunday. They were supposed to win that game. It looked like everything was going to go their way. If you look at the couple of fourth down plays, that huge catch by Gronkowski to keep it alive, then the touchdown, you're thinking, uh-oh, here come the Patriots. But no, a couple mistakes made by this team really cost them. One was the point after miss by Gostowski, and two was going for fourth down when you're inside the 30 with about 3 minutes to go, or just under 3 minutes to go, and instead of kicking the field goal, you decide to go for it, and obviously you end up losing the game by that cause. Which was worse, or were there other plays that cost them?
Geez, I thought they were pretty equal, right? Like the Gostkowski kick, at the time, you don't think it's that big of a deal, right? I think it was still in the first quarter, it was maybe off the first touchdown. But that fourth down call, you could argue it either way. I mean, you've seen Belichick do that so many times in the past, right? And, he's, it's the game in 2009 where he didn't want to give the ball back to Manning with just about 2 minutes to play, and he went for it on fourth down in his own 20 or so. So, yeah, we've seen that from him in the past. And it obviously, in hindsight, it didn't work. I kind of liked the call at the time, so I guess I'd have to go with the Gostkowski kick.
Yeah, you wouldn't have the second one without the first,
right?
And you wouldn't have a miss. I love them.
But you're down by 8 in this case. Instead of going for the 2, wouldn't you want to go with the PIT, knowing that you had 4 timeouts essentially, because you had all your 3 timeouts plus the 2-minute warning. So there's plenty of time, and the way your defense played in that fourth quarter, at least in that second half, was much better than what they did earlier in the game. So you got to think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to let my defense do their thing and just get 3 points here, and put faith in Gostowski in that case, since he missed the PAT.
See, I like the opportunity of going for it on fourth, because you're against the best defense in the league, and you have to now score against them, which, great. Like, let's see what happened. They scored at the end, then you miss your point after. I would take the opportunity when I have it, because if you miss that opportunity, you have still 3 minutes to come back and still score another touchdown. Whereas if you kick a field goal, and the way the offense, Denver could have just ran out that clock, and timeouts all you want. A couple runs here, a couple throws there, game's over. I take the chance while I have it, especially in the playoffs, go for the touchdown, maybe you'll have a 2-point conversion. If you miss a 2-pointer, then you go for that field goal. You have that 3 minutes. I'd rather have like a minute left to try and hit a field goal than a minute left trying to get a touchdown.
Even though the best rusher in that game was Tom Brady, because if you look at what C.J. Anderson did, he didn't really have that many great gains. It seemed like the best rusher on Denver side, period, was Peyton Manning. That's saying a lot. I would have gave his defense much more credit. I would have kicked that field goal, at least pull yourself within 5, and that touchdown to Gronk, that would have been a game winner. That's how I would have saw it. But you guys don't agree?
I think either way you look at it, it really doesn't matter which way you would have went. You still needed 2 scores. So which one makes it easier? And that's the difference of opinion. Which ones do you go for the touchdown first to make it easier for later, or do you take the field goal to set up a game winning?
But then you blame Gostowski, like you said, because he started the whole thing in this. Okay, how about this? I know we talked about the Patriots pretty much shooting themselves in the foot, but what about the other end? At least we got to give some credit to Peyton Manning, what he did. The defense did what they had to do, and they did a great job. We all know that defense is good. But where would you assess Peyton Manning and how he played?
He managed the game very well. He came out, he did what he had to do, putting 14 up early, and then knowing that his arm is as weak as it is, I think everything he did for the rest of that game was just safe. They had the lead the entire way through. He didn't want to throw that pick that would essentially cost the Broncos the game, right? So, yeah, he didn't look good in the second half, but I think it was a little bit by design, so to speak, because he's not what he used to be.
He doesn't have to do that. And I said that last week, that he doesn't have to be. This wasn't Manning versus Brady. This was defense versus defense and Brady versus the Denver. Like Manning was just a sideshow kind of in that he just needed to play well, not throw the ball away, not turn it over, and Denver wins. Look what happened. Defense picked it up. That's where you're going to win. Let's be honest. That's how Denver's going to win the Super Bowl, is by winning by defense and Manning not making mistakes. If Manning doesn't throw 4 or 5 interceptions a game, Denver wins. That's
0 interceptions in those 2 divisional games, the divisional and the championship. That speaks volumes. How about moving on to the other end, the NFC Championship? You had the Arizona Cardinals getting trounced by Carolina, and really it was a dominating performance on all facets of the game, in particular Cam Newton, and the emergence of a potential, if not he's a superstar, he will be a mega superstar if he goes all the way and wins this thing. If you look at how he's evolved in his game, there's a lot of critics saying, well, he can't throw as far, he runs too much, this, that, and the other. He's evolved the quarterback situation. Andrew, we'll begin with you. Do you agree with that assessment?
He has. It's what he's, even just this year. And I always talk about fantasy on this show, and I talk about fantasy football. Beginning of the year, everyone told him, don't pick up Cam Newton. He has no one to throw to. The team's not that great. He's a risky pick. And I'm like, well, let's go. Take a quarterback. Let's take a risk on Cam Newton. Now all of a sudden you have the quarterback who's in the Super Bowl. Like, I look like a genius.
The most feared quarterback in the league, Tyler?
Yeah, this year he has been for sure. I mean, I would put him just slightly above Aaron Rodgers right now. I mean, Rodgers had a little bit more to work with this season. Cam's problem has always been he can't stay healthy. Like we saw for a couple of years there where he was just, even when he was playing, he was beat up. This year, he seemingly, I should say, stayed healthy the entire season. And wow, like just incredible to watch with, you consider, like it wasn't just his wide receivers. That offensive line isn't what it used to be in Carolina. The running game, Jonathan Stewart had a good season, but they were without D'Angelo Williams this year. Like they are a very flawed football team, and he seems to cover up all those flaws. And I personally, I don't see how they lose to Denver in the Super Bowl. I really don't.
And
as good as that D is.
And it's going to lead up to my next question. I know it's still early because you never know what's going to happen in the next week and a half. Of course, Davis Sr. Looks like he will be playing, potentially with a near fractured arm. So that's saying a lot about how competitive it is. But he does have 2 weeks. Very quickly, 5.5-point favorites is what Carolina is at. You look at what Carolina did in these playoffs, blowing out Arizona, nearly blowing out, or at least that huge first half lead against Seattle. Do we see the same performance in the Super Bowl?
Yeah. And Denver has a phenomenal defense. They might be as good as what Seattle had 2 years ago, and that's saying something because I think the Seattle defense was maybe a top 5 defense of all time. But I don't know how you stop Cam Newton. I really don't know what the game plan is. We haven't seen anybody come up with anything formidable in, a year now.
And on the flip side of it, Carolina's defense is pretty good as well. Yeah. Not bad, pretty good defense. And so you
number one in takeaways.
That's the key.
And that's what they did against Arizona. Like if Cam Newton's starting from his own or their 40, their 30 every down, like how many times? Like that's how Arizona lost. They didn't lose because they did something. Well, they did something a lot wrong. You kept giving Cam Newton 30 yards to score a touchdown. That's dangerous, and that's because the defense played well, the special teams played well. It's the whole team is doing everything, and that's what's scary about Carolina.
We're going to leave it on that note. We're going to take a commercial break and return with more Gloves Are Off.